Dr. Emma Taylor, a renowned psychologist, stood at the entrance of the abandoned asylum, her eyes fixed on the crumbling structure. She had spent years researching the effects of isolation on the human mind, and now she was about to conduct the most ambitious experiment of her career. Emma's team had carefully selected 5 participants, each with their own unique psychological profile. They would be sealed inside the asylum for 6 weeks, with no contact with the outside world. The goal was to study how their minds would deteriorate and how they would interact with each other. As Emma led the participants into the asylum, she felt a shiver run down her spine. The building seemed to loom over them, its walls exuding a malevolent presence. The participants were Sarah, a timid and anxious young woman; Jake, a charismatic and confident former soldier; Emily, a quiet and reserved introvert; Matt, a loud-mouthed and aggressive extrovert; Rachel, a calm and collected psychologist, who would serve as Emma's eyes and ears inside the asylum. 20 years later, Emma, now an old woman, sat in her dimly lit study, surrounded by dusty books and fading memories. She had never spoken of the isolation experiment, never dared to utter a word about the horrors that had taken place within those walls. But tonight, something felt different. Tonight, the shadows seemed to move of their own accord, and the wind whispered secrets in her ear. Emma's eyes wandered to an old trunk in the corner of the room. It was locked, but she knew what was inside: the files, the recordings, the evidence of the experiment. She got up, her old bones creaking, and walked over to the trunk. She inserted the key, turned it, and lifted the lid. A musty smell wafted out, and Emma's eyes widened as she gazed upon the contents. The files, the recordings, everything was still there. But something was off. Something was missing. Emma's heart began to pound as she rummaged through the trunk. And then she saw it. A small and marked cassette tape. She picked it up, her hands trembling. This was it. This was the recording of the final night, the night when everything went wrong. Emma inserted the tape into an old player and pressed play. The room fell silent, except for the sound of static. And then, a voice, faint but unmistakable. Rachel's voice. "We're not alone," Rachel whispered. "Something's here with us. Something's watching us." Emma's eyes widened as she listened to the recording. The participants' voices grew more and more frantic, until suddenly, the tape went silent.